High upon the mist-laden mountains of Dharmalaya, where the winds carried whispers of forgotten wisdom, lived a monk named Keshan. His robes, tattered, his hands, calloused from years of labor, but his spirit was unbroken. You see, Keshan wasn't always like this. He was once a man of the world, tethered to distractions, but he had sought refuge in the monastery to rebuild himself from the ruins of his past. Yet, even within the silence of the temple walls, distractions crept in, like shadows at dusk. The first distraction? Nostalgia. Every morning, as Keshan swept the temple courtyard, his mind drifted back to his old life. He had once been a merchant in the bustling city of Varangana. Silk adorned him, wealth surrounded him, flattery and indulgence were his daily companions. The aroma of spiced wine, the laughter of old friends, the thrill of trade, it all haunted him like phantoms. He had left that life behind, searching for peace, yet it clung to him, whispering, "Wasn't that life better? Weren't you happier?" His master, the wise abbot Rinzin, saw the weight in his disciples' eyes. One evening, as they sat beneath the Bodhi tree, he said, "A pot filled with old stagnant water cannot be filled with fresh. If you wish to rebuild yourself, you must first empty the past." So Keshan began the painful work of letting go. He sat with the echoes of his old life, allowing them to surface, then dissolve like mist in the morning sun. But his trials, far from over. The second distraction? Temptation. One autumn evening, a woman arrived at the monastery gates seeking shelter. She was unlike the monks, her presence warm, her voice a melody of forgotten desires. She spoke of the world beyond the temple, of cities, of love, of companionship. She reminded him what it meant to feel, to be wanted, to be human. Doubt gnawed at him. He had chosen solitude. Yet here was the world, calling him back. "Why deny yourself happiness?" a voice in his mind whispered. Abbot Rinzin, sensing Keshan's turmoil, handed him a candle. "Walk through the monastery with this lit," he said, "and do not let the wind snuff it out." Keshan walked carefully, shielding the flame from even the slightest breeze. By the time he returned, his focus had sharpened. "This candle," the abbot said, "is your purpose. Guard it fiercely, and no external force can extinguish it. But if you waver, even the gentlest wind can put it out." Keshan understood. His discipline was his flame, and he alone was responsible for keeping it alive. The third distraction? Comparison. New disciples entered the monastery, young, eager, disciplined. They meditated longer, worked harder, grasped teachings with ease. Keshan, weathered by years, felt himself falling behind. "Perhaps I am not meant for this path. Perhaps I am not enough." Again the abbot guided him. "Come with me to the river," he said. There they watched two trees, one tall and strong, the other small and frail. "Does the small tree envy the tall one?" Rinzin asked. "Does the river refuse to flow because the mountains are higher?" "No," Keshan murmured. The abbot smiled. "Each follows its path without measuring itself against another. So should you." And so, Keshan turned inward. His only competition? The man he was yesterday. Years passed. The distractions, they never disappeared. But Keshan learned to master them. The past would call. Temptations would arise. The world would compare. But his focus? Unshaken. He had rebuilt himself, not as a man without struggles, but as a man who walked through them without losing his way. One day, as he stood at the monastery gates, a young man arrived. his face weary, his spirit lost. "I have come seeking peace," he said, "but my mind is restless, filled with doubts and distractions. What must I do?" Kishan smiled and handed him a candle. "Walk with this," he said, "and do not let the wind put it out." New disciples entered the monastery, young and eager. They meditated longer, worked harder, and grasped teachings with ease. Kishan, now weathered by years, felt himself lagging behind. "Perhaps I am not meant for this path," he thought. "Perhaps I am not enough." Again the abbot guided him. "Come with me to the river." There they watched two trees, one tall and strong, the other small and frail. Does the small tree envy the tall one? Does the river refuse to flow because the mountains are higher? Number each follows its path without measuring itself against another. So should you. Keshan stopped looking outward and turned inward. His only competition was the man he was yesterday. Years passed, the distractions never disappeared, but Keshan had learned to face them. The past would call, temptations would arise, and the world would compare, but his focus remained unshaken. He had rebuilt himself, not as a man without struggles, but as a man who walked through them without losing his way. One day, as he stood at the monastery gates, a young man arrived, weary and lost. "I have come to seek peace," he said, "but my mind is restless, filled with doubts and distractions. What must I do?" Keshan smiled and handed him a candle. "Walk with this," he said, "and do not let the wind put it out." The lesson remains. Rebuilding yourself is not about eliminating distractions, but about mastering them. Let your focus be on you every day.